wonderful program in Broomfield. Thanks to Berry Patch Farms in Brighton for having us. We had an amazing time picking berries. We hope you have a delicious fall season. We'll see you next time on Connected Colorado.
The Louisville Art Association was founded in 1980 and became a non-profit corporation in 1992. We strive to promote our local artists as well as foster a greater sense of community and improve the quality of life of the community by creating cultural opportunities for everyone. Providing opportunity for artists and art enthusiasts adds to the vitality of our community. With creativity comes inventive and original ideas, a key to growth and change. The Louisville Art Association has reached out to over 6,000 people through our shows and events. We have a membership of over 325 people.
Recording in progress.
Welcome everybody to the Louisville, Colorado City Council meeting of Tuesday, September the 5th. City Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Maloney?
Here.
Councilmember Lay? Here. Councilmember Most?
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton? Here. Councilmember Hefner?
Here.
Thank you very much. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see.
Thank you, everybody. Next up is approval of the agenda. One of the things I want to note, we have a very long agenda tonight, but most of the items are first reading. And so I'll only really announce those set the public comment period for, some of them are 2 weeks, some are 3 weeks, some are 4 weeks out. So just so you know, the last half of the agenda will not be open to public discussion. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Public items, on items not on the agenda and items on the consent agenda. This is a chance for anyone to speak on any item not on the agenda or on the consent agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Please tell us your name and if you're a Louisville resident. Are you first up? Is there anyone in the chambers that would like to make any comments? I don't see any hands, and we have 3 people on Zoom. All right. Seeing no public comments, we'll move on to consent agenda. I want to make note for my colleagues, you should have a replacement for item L at your desk there. It's an emergency land use, and so this is actually an updated version that when we approve the consent agenda, this is the one that we will be used. And I don't know if we need the attorney to explain what the difference is.
Thank you, Mayor. So there are a number of revisions that I proposed when we received this draft from Boulder County, and they're mainly intended to comply with the city's charter, which substantially restricts what kind of uses and improvements can be constructed in open space. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, thank you for making sure we're staying true to the charter. Does anyone have any changes to the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is council informational comments on pertinent items. Do any council members have any pertinent items not on the agenda that they would like to report? Councilor Lay?
Yes, I got a call earlier today from Community Food Share, and I don't think we often talk about specific nonprofits from the dais, because there's not a reason to. I thought it was worth making an exception today, because I was absolutely floored by what I what I heard, which is that they, and I presume others around the state, are seeing record highs. I asked them for some information, formal information. Seeing record highs in families and individuals served over the past few months. June set a record for the highest number of unique individuals and households served in a 1-month period, topping any other month throughout Community Food Share's 40-plus years of serving the community. Serving an estimated 5,723 individuals, 49% increase year over year, 2,158 households, which is a 42% increase year over year. The record set in June beat the previous record set just a month before. A major reason for the uptick in the need is the reduction on benefits from governmental assistance programs such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. And families are receiving an average of $360 less in aid for food purchase assistance than they were before the cutback. That change took place in March, so what they have said is that that's going to continue, and they think probably just increase. So I think it's important that we recognize that. They're an important nonprofit that operates out in the Tech Center, Colorado Tech Center, and supplies Boulder County and Broomfield, a lot of different programs and so forth. And a lot of this is really invisible to many of us. But if you are at all interested, they gave me a website address, which is communityfoodshare, all one word, .org, communityfoodshare.org. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Most.
Interestingly enough, somewhat consistent with what Chris is talking about. I don't know if you've noticed, but I certainly noticed that homeowners and auto insurance are going through the roof. In fact, I saw an article in the New York Times about this, that Colorado is one of the worst hit areas. I've been shopping around, and I got a couple of screens when I did so saying, sorry, we don't insure people in Colorado anymore because of wildfire. So I think that what we're going to see as a community, and having taken advantage of the community food service myself during COVID, there are a lot of people in this community who I think are invisible. And yes, it's broader Boulder and Broomfield County, but it's within Louisville too. And we are low and moderate income folks in this community are going to continue to get battered. We know the house valuations are coming up. That's going to increase property tax. Just the day-to-day living expenses for people who are just barely making it are going to be an even more significant burden. And I think it's something, as a council and a community, we just need to be aware of. There are people within our community who are struggling, and the Community Food Share is an amazing service, and we have other amazing services, and I just want to make sure that we are aware of this as a community, and we're doing everything we can to make sure whatever services are available, our community can take advantage of to help them.
Thank you. Councilor Dickinson.
Thanks. Just on a obviously lighter note, I just want to thank Jeff Durbin and all the staff for an amazing Labor Day celebration, the pet parade, the fall festival, everything. It was just one of those days in Louisville that we just adore so much, to have both all of our residents kind of coming down, hanging out and having a great day, but also there's so many people, because we are the show on Labor Day. There's like, we're the parade. They're not in any of our neighboring towns. So we have so many people that get to come to our community and enjoy that parade and see our small town joy and event. And it was just so well put together. I'm sure a lot of you experienced the same thing. Just so well organized and well attended and fun. And it was just a really great day. So thank you for all of your work, because if you're watching, we don't do anything. It's all your guys' action, and thank you so much for putting on a great day.
All right, move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple items. First of all, I'd like to introduce Sama Fox, our new deputy city manager. This is her first city council meeting. She's here. It's week 3. Happy she's still coming back. She's doing a great job. I wanted to also thank staff for their work over the weekend. Our event staff, public works, law enforcement, they all put on a good face. They all worked really hard and did a great job. So thanks for noting that, and I want to share that same appreciation. Another thank you, the Boulder County Community Foundation recognized the funding that the city council authorized for private property debris removal. And with the help of Boulder County, they have contributed about $600,000 to the city to help us offset those private property costs that the city paid. So a big thank you to them, and that's great news for us as we talk about our budget tonight. And last of all, I want to thank and acknowledge, well, first of all, when we had our fire, we received support from so many other cities. I can't even tell you. Last week or so, we paid it forward with Maui. We sent 3 of our water team members out to Maui, and they had quite an experience. I'm hoping that they can tell their story to you soon. It was quite an experience. Really proud of them and their work, and thank you to them and for all of your support through that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, city manager. Next, we'll move on to regular business. First item up is ordinance number 1856, series 2023, an emergency ordinance for extending the city's 3/8 of 1% sales tax for park and open space purposes, and for additional 10-year period, imposing an additional 1/8 of 1/10% of sales and use tax for open space purposes as provided herein, and providing for the submission of the ballot question to a vote of the registered electors at a regular election to be held on November 7th, 2023. This is the first and final reading, and including the public hearing. I just want to make note, this is a fix of what we passed before, because the use tax portion is a continuing tax, whereas the sales tax portion is something we have to vote on every 10 years. So we just needed to correct some language that was in there. So this is all we're really doing tonight with this particular item. So does staff have any, city manager, did you want to say anything about this? All right, well, we'll go straight to public comment then. So this is the first, since this is an ordinance, it's the first round of public comments. Anybody in the chambers, anybody on Zoom? Okay, seeing none. Council questions, discussion? I think I know what you're all thinking. We'll go to the second round of public comment. Sherry Summer?
I just want to thank everybody who was involved in this process. It's just been so positive to see all of the support from council, the help from staff, city manager, and I'm just really happy to see us all work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. So I'm going to make one comment before anybody makes a motion, it was really a sharp-eyed constituent in town that noticed this. And I was a little surprised when it was pointed out to me, and then staff reacted for us to be able to do it as quickly as we needed to, because this needed to be done this week. So with that, does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll
Councilor
make a
Rose?
motion, yes. Okay, so I will make a motion that we pass ordinance number 1856, series 2023, an emergency ordinance for extending the city's 3/8 of 1% sales tax for parks and open space purposes for an additional 10-year period, imposing an additional 1/8 of 1% sales and use tax for open space purposes as provided herein, and providing for the submission of the ballot question to a vote of the registered electors.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lay,
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner,
Yes.
Mayor Maloney,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey,
Yes.
Councilmember Most,
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Passes 7-0. Next up is Louisville Heights replat B and landmarking 301 Spruce Street. So we will take up both resolutions at the same time. Resolution number 51, Series 2023, a resolution approving a landmark designation for historical residential property located at 301 Spruce Street. And resolution number 52, Series 2023, a resolution approving the Louisville Heights replat B, a minor subdivision to replat lots 12 through 16, block 5 of the Louisville Heights addition to create 2 lots. That's a mouthful. And I think we have a staff presentation.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. Okay, so I'll start with the landmark. This property, this building was built in 1908. It is on the National Register of Historic Places, in which it was noted that it is one of Louisville's largest and most elaborate historic places or residences. It does meet the landmark criteria for the reasons up on your screen, which include that it hasn't changed over time, that it has architectural and social significance. And the Historic Preservation Commission did recommend approval of this landmark to City Council. So staff is recommending approval of Resolution 51, Series 2023, which is the landmark. And just to clarify that it would only apply to the western lot if the subdivision were approved, so that lot 1. So moving on to the subdivision, this is currently 1 lot. You can see at the bottom right hand of your screen. The proposal is to turn it into 2 lots, and there are modifications for 3 modifications requested. They all pertain to lot 2, so that would be the property that's not landmarked, that doesn't have the historic residence on it. And the 3 modifications are to allow a lot size of 6,755 square feet, where 7,000 is required, a lot width of 54 feet, where 70 feet is required, and a minimum lot area of 6,755 square feet, where 7,000 is required. So the proposed subdivision also has been checked for compliance with setbacks and all of the Old Town Overlay Zone District. I feel like I might have written one of those wrong. 1 and 3 seem to be saying the same thing. I think it's probably dwelling area is 7,000 square feet as I'm looking at it now, so apologies for that. I hope it's written correctly in your staff report. Okay, so staff analyzed the requests for modifications and found that it conforms with all other aspects of Title 16, that the modifications did meet the criteria. Just to run through it quickly, these modifications support the comprehensive plan and the preservation master plan, both of which contemplate preservation of buildings like this, maintains the same density as what's possible with the area currently. So it would be max 2, and per the area currently, it's also max 2 dwelling units. Maintains the character of the area by maintaining an existing historic structure. And then, of course, the unique physical condition would be that there's a house on the property that's over 100 years old, and that was definitely not created by the applicant. And there was also a table in your staff report just kind of giving you a sense of, staff finds this is comparable to lot widths and sizes in the neighborhood, even though currently it's sort of a larger lot. So with that, staff recommends approval of Resolution 52, Series 2023, which would approve the Louisville Heights Replat B and the subdivision agreement. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from council on the presentation? Thank you very much. We'll take public comment. Does the applicant want to say anything? We should make it easier for you to get up here.
I moved the chairs. I'm Susanna Pels, and I inherited the house from my mother. She got it in 2010. It's a beautiful home, and our plans with the subdividing is to try to have 2 lots eventually to pass on to our children, so it could stay in the family. And we've been in Louisville since 1985, and we live on Grant Avenue, and we'd like to downsize, so our goal is to put a smaller dwelling there for retirement and to be able to stay in Louisville, because we like Louisville. And that's about all I have to say. And
All right, well, thank you for presenting to us.
okay, thank you.
All right, so we will move on to public comments. I'm used to having cards. I don't have any cards today. Anybody on Zoom have public comment? All right, council? Councilor Dickinson and
Either way, that's great. Yeah, I support this. I cannot believe that home is not landmarked. So I love that I walk by that house all the time. So I'm very excited to have that home landmarked and protected, and being able to utilize that enormous lot that you have. It's very unusual in that area to have such a huge lot. And so being able to split that up and put a smaller home on that second lot, to me, makes perfect sense. I'm glad that staff was able to work to present something to us that, for me, just seems logical and a great path forward for you and your family and our neighborhood. So I'm in full support.
Councilor Most?
I just want to say I'm jealous. That is a beautiful house. I know that's probably not an appropriate comment for the land use, but it reminds me of my grandmother's house. It's absolutely gorgeous. So along with Councilmember Dickinson, I think it's a great use of the land. I think I look forward to seeing what happens with the house. It's absolutely gorgeous. So,
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to agree with what's been said. This is a beautiful home, and I also drive by it quite frequently, trying to avoid Pine Street. And I love the idea that a home that's in this kind of condition is being landmarked and preserved forever. I just can't say enough about preserving the history of the town, which is a wonderful town. So thank you. Oh, and also, it will assist in our affordable housing, perhaps. Thank you.
I just want to make a few comments. I agree with my colleagues. I think this is a terrific application. I appreciate the applicants coming forward, and working with staff. Sometimes we have rules about setbacks and feet and this and so forth, and this, to me, fits absolutely within the spirit of those rules, but it also helps us preserve and landmark something that really is truly important, and allows you to also build something for your continuing life in Louisville. So I fully support this. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I can do that. I move that we approve resolution number 51, series 2023, a resolution approving a landmark designation for historical residential property located at 301 Spruce Street. You want to do one at a time or both?
Second.
One at a time.
One at a time. Second.
Sorry. Second.
Do we have a second?
Kristen.
Second.
Did you get Councilor Lay seconded? All right, any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Councilmember Most?
yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to make a motion on the second resolution?
Yes, I will. I propose
approving Resolution Number 52, Series 2023, a resolution approving the Louisville Heights Replat B, a minor subdivision to replat lots 12 to 16, Block 5 of the Louisville Heights addition to create 2 lots.
Second.
Any discussion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Maloney?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fahey?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hefner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Councilmember Most? Councilmember
Yes.
Dickinson?
Yes.
You might have gotten 8 yeses there.
Passes 8-0.
That's pretty unanimous. All right. Well, thank you very much for your application. I think the city very much supports what you're doing, so thank you. Next up is discussion, direction, recommendation for budget 2024, including updated capital improvements planned for 2023 through 2028, and an updated long-term financial plan for 2023 through 2028. And this is really to set the public hearing for October 17th of 2023. So for the councilors, this is a first reading type of item. If you have some, high-level questions, that's good, but this is really setting the public hearing. We are going to dig deep into this next week, look under the hood and understand more. So with that, I'll hand it over to the director for a presentation.
Good evening. Thank you, City Council members, for allowing me the opportunity to present the city's 2024 recommended budget. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the work of the people that has assisted in its development. This is a large undertaking. Without the input of each of the department heads and their staff, this document could not have been prepared. A special thank you to the Human Resources Department who assisted with the salary and benefits projection. That's a big one too. I'd also like to thank finance staff Kim Baker, Julie Glazer, Diane Krieger, and Jordan Gotsky for their significant contributions to this document. If I can do this. Today's agenda is as follows. We'll begin with an introduction and next steps. I'll turn it over to City Manager Jeff Durbin for citywide fiscal priorities and issues, City Manager's recommended enhancements. Then I'll dive into the citywide budget, fund financial forecasts, and a CIP update summary. A reminder that while the City Council adopted the 23-24 biennial budget on November 15th, 2022, only the 2023 portion of the biennial budget was legally adopted and appropriated. The comprehensive 23-24 biennial operating capital budget was published on January 23rd. The 2024 budget and attachments are only meant to supplement this previously published document. Here's where we are and here's where we're going. We last met on July 18th, the budget retreat at the library. Today, you'll receive the city manager's recommended budget presentation. Next Tuesday, we'll be holding a budget special hearing. Tuesday, October 17th, final budget presentation with adoption on Monday, November the 6th. And with that, I'll turn it over to City Manager Jeff Durbin.
I'm just realizing we need microphones for taller people here. Thanks, Director Bailey. I would echo the same things. Last year I was here and I said it was a very unusual budget process for me. And I thanked a lot of people then. This year was relatively unusual as well. We have a new finance director, a lot of new people in finance, a lot of new directors across the organization. So I echo those same thoughts of appreciation to all their work. And Ryder and his team have been working diligently on this budget process. So a few notable priorities and issues that are driving our work with the budget. Obviously, the Marshall Fire recovery and mitigation remains important. I'm really pleased to note that we now have a recovery and resilience program manager, as well as a mitigation coordinator we just hired last week. So we have that capacity to start really making moving the needle, if you will. Open space and parks ballot measure that you talked about earlier is extremely important to the whole organization, not just parks and open space. If this doesn't pass, we'll have a lot of challenges in terms of how we pay for these operations, which will have an impact to the general fund. So we'll be watching that closely. The budget as it's presented right now is kind of a status quo on this piece. If it passes or fails, we'll be coming back with an amendment. If it passes, we'll be coming back to create 2 new funds, parks and open space. If it doesn't, we'll be working on our contingency plan, which is basically draining the fund balance while we work to figure out where we're going from there. So that's important to us, obviously, from that perspective. Commitment towards sustainability and decarbonization of city facilities. You heard a presentation really recently about our internal decarb and soon about our community decarb work and sustainability across the organization. Economic vitality is a priority for council in your draft work plan at the moment for next year. It's also really critical to our ability to pay for services and programs and projects because sales tax revenue really is the big revenue stream for the city's operations. Affordable housing. This is something you have expressed a lot of interest in. It's on your draft work plan as well for next year. And we are currently working on a affordable housing study and strategic plan, hoping to have that wrapped up by late November, December, which will provide a real roadmap for where we go next year. Office space. We're out of space. My new mitigation coordinator, I don't know where I'm going to put her just yet. That's where we're at with office space. So we're currently in the process of looking at renting space. It's not cheap to rent office space, but we've got to find a place to put people. So I'll be coming back to you with more on that in the near future. Personnel expenditures, other than projects, this is our big expenditure, and personnel expenditures are outpacing revenues. Benefits, competitive labor market, all those things drive personnel costs. Superior Library IGA, this is on here. You had a meeting with the Town of Superior Town Board, and I think it was June, and they asked for basically an evaluation of what they're paying for the library service. Is it the correct amount? There is a scenario where they withdraw and do their own library. If they do that, that's $350,000 loss in terms of revenue to our library, and we really don't have room in our operations of the library to downsize. So that would be a tough nugget for us to figure out. So we'll see where that conversation goes. Some enhancements, high level again, to share with you. IT, information technology, our new IT director has identified some security risks that she's working diligently to address. IT, our laptops is mission critical. As you know, I mean, we had a broadband outage over Thanksgiving last year, another one earlier this year, and it really shut down our operations in a lot of places. So security is a priority. She's got some good plans in place. It's going to cost some money. Police department server upgrade. This is really a 2023 project. If you want to see what a server room should not look like, Chief Gutierrez has an example to show you. So we're in the process of cleaning that up because if a server like that goes down, that's a problem for PD for a lot of reasons, obviously. Public safety, also in the police department. We previously had a co-responder program. That contract expired at the end of 2022. We're in the process of moving to another provider, and then we had a lot of transition in the department. 2023, we have not had that program, so Chief is working on bringing that program back in 2024. It's a great program and provides us a lot of coverage, so you'll be excited to hear about that. But like everything else, it costs money. Police department taser program. In the past, we would buy tasers and take care of maintenance. All of our tasers are, as I understand it, out of warranty at this point, and we need to do something about that. Non-lethal tools are super important, I think, to our work. And we'll be moving to more of a service / subscription type program. Parks and open space. In addition to the tax question, in the budget, there is a Parks, Rec, Open Space, and Trails master plan proposal. We really need to update that. The plan we have today is 2010, I believe, 2012, so it's 11 years old. And we need to update that work. Mitigation efforts this year, we've done a lot of things like regenerative agriculture, mowing, and so forth. Next year, we're proposing additional expenditures to do more. I think it's end of October, the wildfire risk assessment report will be coming to you, and that will help inform what those specific programs are. Community development, this is another really big project, the comp plan and ultimate land development code rewrite. Finally, office space planning and rent, I already mentioned that. Personnel, we've had a lot of requests for people. Everybody really wants more people. These are the positions that are currently in play with the 2024 budget. Recovery, resilience, and mitigation, those are actually new positions this year, both grant funded for a period of time. Those are in the budget also for next year. Sustainability coordinator, that's a new position this year, funded by bag tax revenues. That's also in next year. Communications, this increase from a variable position is Ryan in the back room, who does all of this for you. There's a new state statute that requires us to broadcast like this for municipal court. So we'll be increasing Ryan's time to cover that. And there's also the capital costs along with that too. IT, Public Works utility position. This is a utility position, water and sewer, that would be housed in IT. IT does a lot of work servicing utility things like water meters and all those type of things. So this is a position that will help with that, living in IT. Financial analyst, Ryder could use some help. And communications marketing, we're having a lot of conversations right now about how we speak better with one voice throughout the organization and streamline things. So we have one variable, which is a part-time position, currently proposed. With that, I'm going to throw it back to Director Bailey.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Durbin. This is my first budget in the city of Louisville, so I'd like to start at a very high level. Broken out by program, here are the 2024 recommended budget expenditures for 2024. We'll start on the bottom in the blue slices of the pie. Nearly 50%, half of the budget, is Public Works transportation and utilities. Public Works transportation are things like engineering, transportation planning, street maintenance, including the pavement booster program, snow and ice removal, sign maintenance, streetscapes. And utilities are water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste. Going clockwise on our pie, about 16%, 1/6, are parks, open space, and recreation. Parks is parks, conservation trust, and the cemetery. Open space and trails, and then recreation, which includes the recreation center, Memory Square pool, and golf. Continuing around, cultural services includes our world-class library, museum, art center, and Steinbach Pavilion. Economic vitality is next, about 1%. Non-programmatic, about 9%. These are items such as interfund transfers, insurance, debt service payments. Admin and support's about 12%. This is our city manager's office, city council, communications team, clerk, finance, HR, IT, sustainability. Community design is the community development department. 9% public safety and justice. This is our court, code enforcement, and police department. And that is our expenditures and the recommended budget at a high level glance. Our cities are one of our most valuable assets, but also a significant expenditure category. From adopted 2023 to recommended 2024, so adopted 2023 is here, I'm on the white line, to recommended 2024, there's an increase of approximately 7 FTEs, from 284 FTEs to 291 FTEs. Total budgeted wages, full, variable, and overtime in 2024 are projected at $23.5 million. Projections in out years included approximate 4% growth. This gets you to 2028, about $27.3 million. For benefits, in 2024, we are expecting about 4.3% growth. It's the white line right here. From 2023, $6.2 million in total benefit costs, approximately 21% of total salaries and benefits. In future years, we're expecting 5 to 8% benefit growth in this expenditure category. Just want to note that 2023 spiked the current year about 20%. This is attributable to changes in how we do police retirement contributions and a budgeted 10% cost increase for healthcare, which actually came in a little bit lower. So this is budgeted, actual should be a little bit lower there. Property tax, mill levy, and temporary credit discussion. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide here. The white line is the city's mill levy over time. The green bars are the total property tax revenue over time. In 2023, and as a reminder, that of the 96.236 mills levied against property in Louisville, only 7.934, or 8%, goes to the city, of which 5.184 goes for general city operations, and 2.75 mills are for the rec center debt payments. Approximately 90% of property taxes go to the following three entities: Boulder Valley School District, Boulder County, and Louisville Fire District. In 2024, assessed property values are increasing. To help offset this increase, the recommended budget includes a temporary 1-year credit reduction in the mill levy to offset this and to align with prior year property tax revenue projection growth, which was set at 7.5%. This is an estimated 1.192 mill levy reduction in the general levy, or about a 23% reduction. This would cost the city's general fund about $1.2 million in 2024. Should this temporary credit be made, a local taxpayer would see a reduction of about $70 in the median priced home in 2024 for the general mill levy. Furthermore, it is being recommended to temporarily reduce the rec center debt levy by 1.375 mills 2024 and reevaluate this levy in 2025 and beyond to better align with annual debt service payments and adhere to Tabor laws. The rec center debt mill levy reduction would result in a taxpayer seeing a reduction of about $80 annually on a median priced home in 2024. So back to the chart. The stip in the white line and the green bar are a result of the items we just discussed. Looking forward, projections here assume the elimination of the temporary credit on the general mill levy and the restoring to 5.184, and an adjustment of the rec center debt levy to right size for future debt payments. Now a trend of the city's sales tax revenue, exhibited by the white line, which is the percentage growth year over year. There's been significant volatility in recent years, starting with the drastic drop in 2020 from 2019. We saw an 8% decrease in sales tax revenue due to COVID. This was followed by a sharp rebound in 2021 of about 16%. In 2022, we saw 9% growth. In 2023, we're projecting a 10% growth. And for 2024, we're budgeting 5% growth, about 3.5 in the out years of the model. For comparison purposes, and because of the uncertainty regarding the upcoming open space and parks sales tax ballot measure, the passage or failure of that measure is not factored into this model. Here are a summary of 2024's inter-fund budgeted transfers. This is unchanged from the 23-24 biennial budget and from July's budget retreat. Per city reserve policies, found on our department's website, the general fund subsidizes the following: Open Space and Parks Fund, Cemetery Fund, and Recreation Fund. In the next row, you can see that the Cemetery Perpetual Fund sends money to the Cemetery Operations Fund. The Historical Preservation Fund sends funding to the general fund for operating and administrative support. The Capital Projects Fund sends funding to the Recreation Fund. And lastly, develop impact fees collected or distributed to parks and public works on actuals collected and for projects eligible for such funding. Okay, over the next dozen slides, I will touch on 6 of the city's major funds, beginning with the general fund, which is where many of the city's basic services are located. This chart includes 2021 actuals, 2022 actuals, 2023 amended budget, projection, and then 2024's recommended budget. Notable items on this chart: taxes in the general fund, increasing by about $800,000. This is being offset by fewer or lower building permit revenue. For expenses, personnel costs, increasing by about $1.2 million. Also notable, inter-fund transfers, you can see a drop of about $3 million. In this year and in the previous year, $6 million in total, $3 million annually was transferred from the general fund to the capital projects fund. This transfer is not planned in 2024. Here we take a step back. We see the general fund forecast. This has been updated since the budget retreat. The forecast shows estimated revenues in the darker green, expenditures net of turnback in the slightly lighter green, and ending fund balances in a yellowish green. You'll note the dotted line dipping below the 25% operational target by the end of 25. This is 25% of your operating budget. And 2026 ending just below the 15% of operations, the minimum 15% reserve target. The two main drivers causing this are expenses outpacing revenue growth and the temporary mill levy credit shown here extending beyond 2024. This is the credit I mentioned just a few minutes ago. If this temporary mill levy credit is implemented only in 2024, this model would need to be revised and could be done by the next budget meeting. So again, if the mill levy temporary credits were eliminated in 2025, it would project to add $1.2 million annually from 2025 to 2028. So this green line here would be slightly higher. In turn, it would impact fund balances and impact reserve threshold levels. Now on to the Parks and Open Space Fund, which may look very different depending on the outcome of the November 7th ballot question. However, for this reason and for historical comparison purposes, a status quo budget is being presented. Notable on this chart, taxes increasing by $200,000 or 6%. Expenses, personnel going up $193,000 or 7%. Capital expenditures are variable year to year and tend to demonstrate variances. And this year we had actually an externally funded capital project, so there's another variance there. The Open Space and Parks Fund forecast has also been updated since the budget retreat. This forecast again shows estimated revenues, estimated expenditures net of turnback, and ending fund balances. You'll notice the trend line dropping below the minimum 15% target reserve in the end of 2025, ending in 2028 with a deficit of $1 million. Over the next 5 years, approximately $2.5 million in parks capital projects are projected to be expended by this fund. Staff may need to reevaluate how parks capital projects are funded. However, with the future of this fund in flux, depending on the upcoming tax measure, we'll likely need to await the outcome before further and deeper analysis can be performed. The Recreation Fund, which not only funds the operation of the Recreation Center, but also provides youth activities such as summer day camp, preschool, child watch, youth sports, aquatics, but also senior activities such as VIA Ride Services that provides rides to disabled and senior citizens, and acts as a senior meal site every day of the week, work week, Monday through Friday. There are also popular events like Touch a Truck held there. The Memory Square Pool is also part of this fund, with admission revenue falling into the fund. Of note here, taxes increasing by $76,000 or about 6%. Charges for services or fees increasing by $568,000 or 23%, largely driven by membership fee revenue attributable to growing membership demand. Miscellaneous revenue is expected to decline as there was a large capital expenditure, the roof replacement, funded by capital proceeds, which is miscellaneous revenue. Okay. Interfund transfers from the general fund and the capital fund mentioned previously grow by 3.5%. In 2024, there are about $1 million in capital projects planned, HVAC, track remediation, and equipment, making up the bulk to be funded by fund balance reserves. The projected fund balance at the end of 2024 in the Recreation Fund is about $2 million, which exceeds the capital asset renewal and replacement target of $1.9 million. The projected Recreation Fund balance at the end of 2028 is $3.7 million. This is well above the minimum reserve target, but falls just shy, about 90%, of the renewal and replacement target, this dotted line right here. Important to note, and mentioned earlier, the Recreation Fund does receive general fund and capital fund transfers to meet those goals. The city continues to place significant emphasis and resources towards our capital infrastructure. Notable for 2024, notable within the 2024 recommended budget, 1.5 million, this is tough to read, 1.5 million for sustainability and decarbonization of our city facilities, nearly 10 million for transportation, including our pavement booster program and State Highway 42 corridor improvements, and 4.9 million for generators at critical city facilities, of which over 80% is grant or externally funded. On this slide, it again demonstrates the significant amount of capital projects planned in 2023 and 2024, over 40 million in total, tapering in out years. The projected fund balance is estimated to hit a low in 2026 of about 1.2 million, but by 2028, fund balance is projected at 5.7 million. For more detail on all projects planned, please refer to your packet with the updated CIP summary. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But for the full complete plan, please refer to the 23-24 biennial budget posted on our website, which includes detail on every single project in the CIP plan, over 100. Much like the capital fund, which we just discussed, the consolidated utility fund, comprised of water, wastewater, and sewer, have significant capital projects planned in 2023 and 2024, totaling over 32 million. That is responsible for driving down the fund balance, driving down the working capital over the next 2 years. This is better demonstrated on the following slide. You'll note here the consolidated funds fund balance ending balance in 2022 was significant at over 30 million. And that you'll notice that's being utilized over the next 2 years. So the light green, yellowish fund balance bar dropping to 2024. This is because of the significant capital projects planned. This is all happening with the expectation of the reserve to maintain at least a 25% minimum working capital balance. So it's dropping, but it's maintained above the working capital reserve. Golf course revenues continue to be strong with heavy utilization of the course and the driving range, while expenses are expected to remain relatively in line with 2022 actuals and 2023 budget. Per our fiscal reserve policy and beginning in 2021, golf course capital outlay will be funded through the Capital Projects Fund. In 2023, you can see roughly 730,000 of capital being shifted out of the golf course fund into the Capital Projects Fund. In doing so, the projected fund balance went from negative 47,000 to 690,000. With the assistance of large capital outlays being subsidized and funded by the Capital Projects Fund, the golf course projected fund balance at the end of 2028 is expected to land at about 700,000, which is in compliance with the fund's reserve policy. Going forward, and in order to remain in compliance with the reserve policy, future capital projects may need to be funded by the Capital Projects Fund. The city manager is recommending the following CIP additions, enhancements to the 2024 budget and capital improvement plan. These projects were discussed at the budget retreat and are largely, all but two, funded through the capital fund. These projects are currently in the city manager's recommended budget and all the models presented today. In total, about 6 million in additional projects are being recommended to be added to the CIP plan. However, net of offsetting grant matches, only approximately 2 million of costs are being attributed to the fund. The complete list of capital projects are found as attachment 2 to your packet today. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the director? Councilor Most.
Yeah, can you just characterize the increase in salary? Do we know how much of, overall staff costs, basically, how much of that is attributable to the fact that salaries are going up, and how much of it is attributable to just growing our staff? I'm just trying to get a sense of what's really pushing that.
Let's pull up that slide, slide 9. I'll just hover over here. I'm trying to pull the percent increase on the fly from 24, projected 24 from 23. All full-time personnel are budgeted at 6% higher.
Okay.
So 6% on 280 positions is really what's driving, and not so much the
Okay.
new positions. I would add a handful, or the majority of the new positions do have offsetting funding. So
Okay.
I would say the 6% increase, and our benefit costs going up as well. But our HR director is a tough negotiator, and she's doing her best to keep those costs down as well. I had mentioned in my presentation 24% of salary, 24% of your salary and benefit costs are benefits. So where I came from, that's really low, and that includes every employee, public safety and regular. So.
Okay. And then the other thing that obviously struck out to me was that I'm looking at the general fund and open space and parks and looking at that reserve disappearing. And wondering, is that something that we ought to be addressing in our conversations about the budget now? I assume that we'll be looking at that. Is that correct, Mayor? Or?
Yes, I mean, that's the kind of thing we're going to be digging into next Tuesday.
Okay, because
So,
obviously
yeah,
that
we're
was
going to
a-
roll up our sleeves and start asking the tough questions.
Okay.
And, honestly, the budget right now is not something that we can approve based upon our fiscal policies
Right.
because it's out of balance. So we have a lot of work to do. So,
Okay, those are my 2 questions. Thanks.
okay. Next up is Mayor Pro Tem Fahey and then Councilor Lay.
Thank you. I have a question. You said that there was a balance that would be going from the golf course into the general fund?
Transfers
Possible.
made.
Transfers, yes.
Essentially, there aren't transfers budgeted within the general fund to the golf fund, but large capital projects, large equipment is funded through the capital projects fund. So that is, it's not a transfer, but it's directing expenditures to that different fund instead of being out of the golf fund. Does that answer your
Well,
question?
I'm just wondering because I know that there are some repairs that need to be done to the clubhouse and some dreams of a new clubhouse, and wondering why that money would get taken out of the golf fund and put into general fund.
To be clear, it's there's no money coming out of the golf fund anywhere else. The golf fund is basically balanced revenues versus expenditures, about 2.5, 2.5. There isn't any money being directed out of the golf fund to another fund.
I think there was just a misstatement when you were doing that part of the presentation where you said it in the opposite direction. And so it took it from a negative balance to a positive balance, so it was a good thing for the golf fund. And just, I noticed it too, it's coming into the golf fund, not going out of the golf fund.
Okay. There, thank you.
Councilor Lay.
Thanks. And thanks for updating this sobering, I guess I would say, and obviously sets the stage for our upcoming discussions. I had a question about the exclusion, the property tax revenue, and just wanted you to go over, again, the rationale for that, because the property tax is progressive typically, and sales tax regressive, and we're excluding that, so there's at least technically some relief for property owners, but I wanted you to explain a little bit about that again, if you would.
Sure thing. This was complicated, and it's on slide 11. We built the 23-24 budget projecting 7.5% growth in property tax revenue. So with assessed values growing at a much higher clip than that, we have a couple options. We could do nothing, leave the mill levy where it is, and what we'll see is our property tax revenue growing the same rate that property tax is, which is somewhere between 30 and 40%. It comes from Boulder County. I can't speak exactly to that. So if we did nothing, you'd arrive at a 30, 40% growth. That's about the 1.2 million that's being left on the table in this recommended budget as it stands. So we backed into the 7.5 property tax projection from year 2 of the 2-year budget. The way you do that is just by pulling that lever down on the mill levy for the general obligation. So that was the rationale behind it, and that's still up for policy call.
Yeah, and I'm not quarreling with any of these. These are more clarifications and frankly, just sort of re-emphasizing what the reason, I mean, most of that revenue doesn't go to us. So cutting it or providing a credit is not something that is gonna somehow hurt the city's position, I don't think too much. Another question is perhaps one for the city manager, which is that I noticed, again, on the sustainability coordinator, that I think is going from, is it part-time to full-time? I mean, or it's recognizing, the budget is recognizing a bump up?
The sustainability coordinator position is new, middle of this year. It's a full-time, year-round position. So just pointing out that that's a new position that wasn't in the 2023 budget, and we're carrying it forward into 2024.
And this is kind of, maybe it's reopening a previous discussion just a little bit, but I know that we're funding that through open space, we're funding it through the bag tax. And perhaps that's a good thing for this year, but you know, our goal is for that bag tax revenue to be reduced overall. I mean, that means the tax is doing what it's supposed to do ultimately. But I know, you know, we have to make assumptions about where that kind of tax revenue comes from. Is it prudent to base the funding for a particular provision or a particular position, which is important to us? I don't think anybody disagrees that it's critical, on revenue that we really would like to drop down.
Yeah, we've had a number of conversations about council's goals for the tax in terms of reducing the use of disposable bags. We understand that. The projections that we have are that while plastic bags will be essentially banned at the beginning of next year, paper bags won't. And our projections, based upon a lot of math that Riders people and our sustainability people have done, it's the drive-through restaurants they're going to continue to use bags, and that's a significant number of bags with especially our drive-through type restaurants. So we project ongoing $100,000-ish in revenue in future years, unless or until our bag reduction programs are successful with things like reusable containers, and that's the programs that we're piloting right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I think that's what you're suggesting is the revenue stream is pretty robust. I mean, it doesn't appear to be going away anytime soon, so it's not, we're not sort of betting on or betting against ourselves in some ways.
Right.
I'm also this is another question about staffing on open space. I mean, there was, and I'm looking back at, I guess it's page 367 of the packet, and there's some discussion there about ongoing dialogue within staff about how much staff is needed and so forth. And obviously, that's pretty critical. Actually, I take that back. I take it back. Office space, not open space. Office space is what I'm talking about. But you've been talking about sort of figuring out what needs and ultimately what the solutions are. Are we going to see those needs and solutions soon?
Yes, I was hoping to talk to you about those next week. and see what your temperature is on those. We have not started any real formal lease negotiations or anything like that yet. It's a significant expenditure. We have things we need to balance. We need space, but I wanted to see what your pulse was going to be next week before moving too far on that.
And one last thing has to do with, thank you for your indulgence of my questions here, all of you. Let's see, it's page 388, but it's your slide on citywide budget at a glance. I think it's page 4 of the presentation. If you wouldn't mind bringing that up.
Of the PowerPoint?
Please.
What slide?
I think it's 4.
The pie chart?
It's the citywide budget at a glance?
Yeah, it's 8.
Sorry.
I got it.
Oh, no, yeah. Gotta hit the. There's a 4 at the bottom. There's several numbers there, but you're right. It's 8. It's very tiny on my screen. There we go. And I recognize this is a programmatic breakdown. Do you know offhand, if we set that aside, what percentage of our budget is personnel costs?
Of our total budget, I will try to give you something right on the fly, probably around a third.
Thank you. I mean, that's a big thing, and it's important because I think, I'm not sure whether you misspoke, but I'll just mention what I would say is the human resources that we have are extraordinarily important to how we function. And we are very fortunate to have who we have. And so that's an expenditure that's pretty critical. And I appreciate your saying the answer to that. Thanks.
I might answer the question you started asking about open space and people. There are positions requested in open space that we have on hold pending the outcome of the ballot question. There's a lot of work to be done there, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Right. Councilor Hefner?
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I just have a couple questions. First, I think you said this, Director Bailey, but let me just make sure you're going to come back to us with a sort of what-if analysis on the property tax, assuming we didn't do any mill levy change. Great. And then are we going to see the same thing on open space? I think it'd be helpful to see, at least rough numbers if the ballot measure passes and if it doesn't pass. I know you've sort of picked a middle ground between those two, but seeing the actual possibilities would be helpful, at least to me. Thirdly, I share obviously the concern and maybe a little bit of alarm at the deficit projected by 28, which isn't all that far off. And I would certainly, and I'm sure you're planning on this, welcome hearing your suggestions and staff suggestions on where we can trim some to create a budget that meets our fiscal policies, because that's where we're obviously headed.
Thank you. Councilor Hamilton?
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to the discussion next week and diving deeper into these slides and charts. Two things that would be helpful for me to aid in that discussion I wanted to bring up in advance. One is concerning the mill levy and the information regarding, I think you said like 90% of it actually goes to other municipalities, resources outside of Louisville. Is there any information regarding any work on that group that holds the 90% and if they're going to give any sort of temporary reductions? Looking at the impact per household of what our reduction would give, and then looking at our long-term financial goals, that information would be helpful to have when weighing our decision. The second piece of information that I think would be helpful is again, regarding the staff and looking at the future as far as wages and benefits goes. I think what would be helpful for me, and I know we've done a little bit of this for some staff members and FTEs within the city, is reiterating, or if already done, or if not, bringing information regarding if our wages are competitive and our benefits package is competitive. I think it's really important that we have that information when we're looking at how much of this pie chart is due to costs of staff, which is very, very important. Losing staff is really expensive as well. So I want to make sure those packages are holistic and that we're planning for that. So that information would be helpful. I don't know who would own that part, but just some general ideas on that. Those statistics would be helpful for me. Thank you.
I'm just going to comment on your first thing, asking about the Boulder Valley Schools, the county, and so forth. I'm actually in contact with the superintendent of BVSD to understand that. I think they're looking at something more like we've been proposing 5 to 7%. And the county is, by state statute, limited to 5.5% increase. So that's why this, we're talking about 1.2 million. If we increase property taxes by 40%, that takes me back. I think that our citizens believe it should be based upon real numbers, inflation, or something along those lines. So that's my perspective. Councilor Dickinson.
Thank you. Yeah, this right here, I think council gave pretty clear direction. Yeah, that one that we were just on was perfect. I think council gave pretty clear direction that, we didn't want to apply this like 40% property value increase to our mill levy. We're keeping our mill levy the same, and the green bar would just absolutely shoot up in 2024. But I just want to, for next week and looking at different possibilities, I certainly assumed it would be at least as high as it was 2 years ago. I wasn't trying to have the nominal impact be a lower property tax income than in the past during a 40% valuation increase. I was hoping we would see like a 7% increase instead of 40, and to see a dip isn't what I was picturing if I were to draw it.
The reason why this is dropping below is because two things are happening. We're cutting the rec center debt, mill levy debt in half at the same time. So if that mill levy, the rec center levy was at the same rate, it would have been higher than 2 years ago. So two things are happening the same
Okay, so yeah, I think being able to see that, because I was running those numbers too, we're just comparing the 5.1 to 3.9, and it isn't as drastic of a drop from previous to now. There's still that drop from what we could get if we just kept our mill levy what it is. That's the 1.2, right? The difference between well, gosh, if we just kept it, we'd make 1.2 million more. But if we're making this adjustment, how does it compare year over year? Which I think was the goal you were going for, is saying well, year over year, we're trying to stay pretty flat in what we actually bring in. But still, I'd like to see that 7%. So just a deeper dive into those two, separating them out, because yeah, one's for the rec center and one's for general fund. And yeah, one of the mills that we pay is, I think, 10.5% to the fire district, right? So just from a point of reference, twice as much to the fire district than to the city of Louisville in our property taxes, right? And I don't know if they have plans to cut their mill levy in the same way. I know it just went up. But then I'm confused because this has us bringing the mill levy back up. But then I thought the general fund, one of your explanations was that it's not assuming it comes back up. So are these just in conflict with each other?
They're in conflict.
Okay.
And this one, it shows as 1 year. I showed it continuing in the out year with the general fund deficit growing. So I'll tweak that if the direction is 1 year.
Because over 4 years, 25, 26, 27, 28, that's $5 million. So the other concern I have with this approach is the 24 to 25 year. So from an optics perspective for our residents, they know why their property taxes are shooting through the roof this year. It's because the valuations went up. So then the next year in 2025, wait, why are they shooting up? Because we're choosing to charge you more. We're making a choice next year to stop doing that, or the following year, to stop doing that credit. And you see this jump from 24 to 25, that's really substantial. That's the biggest jump. Well, I guess there's one other year. Yeah, I'm looking, yeah, that jump right there is just remarkable. Which way are we going? Again, I would like to think about what our options are next week on smoothing this line so that there isn't such an extreme jump from 24 to 25. That's kind of all of our doing when we make that correction. This is just something every time we talk budget, I'm still annoyed with our sales tax growth rate just dipping to a historic low of 3.5% year over year. Like that's not one of the, I just don't get the 3.5. And that has a huge impact on our general fund, is to say, we're just gonna project over a 5-year period that we really just stall out and everything doesn't follow historic trends. COVID, forget about COVID, but just historic trends, we don't grow at 3.5%. And so I think if that number were 5 or 7, it would really drastically change our general fund balance over time. And then one thing that you can dive in deeper next week, the rec fund target balance. I've just never understood this, that it is going up so much year over year. I get the idea that we're trying to get a big balance for renewal and replacement. But again, renewal and replacement should be happening sort of every year. And so you would think that this would be we're not trying to get this huge fund to then replace it all at one time. And anyone can answer this question. I don't understand why we're building a reserve and replacement fund that's so high year after year after year. Shouldn't this taper off at some point and be like, well, we're spending it, we are replacing, we are renewing, so it tapers at some point, right?
That is correct. I mean, you look at next year, it's dropping about $700,000 for the HVAC system. And if you were to look out, this is only 5 years out, but if you were to look even further out, you'd see
You'd
see some dips, you'd see it grow and some dips.
Okay,
So,
well, maybe just give me a better sense of the longer term, because what I see right there with the dotted white line isn't tapering. And so is that truly our target? Because that's just headed up in a 45-degree angle.
So may I? Yeah. So I think it might be good to bring the renewal and replacement schedule. One of the things that's on there is the building. And so that is a 20 to 40-year asset. So you're not going to be spending that in these years.
Got it.
But that is part of that formula.
To actually replace the building, not just the things inside.
Well, not rebuild the building, but to maintain the building. Certain things are going to, like the gymnasium floor will have to be redone. Those kind of things. Those are in there, but they're farther out than this schedule is showing. That's an example of where this, I agree with you. If you just look at this chart, you would go, well, it's going to just keep going up forever.
Yeah.
But there's huge capital expenses in the out years. The same is true with the utilities.
I was about to, yeah.
Where
we finally see the utility
right. I mean,
falling.
but the utility, if you looked at it like 3 or 4 years ago, it had a similar kind of trajectory, but the utility guys actually have a 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so now those things are coming to fruition. So I think when we have those kind of things, Director Ryder, it'd probably be good if we can project out farther. I don't want you to do the whole 30, 40 years on this one, but that probably should be a footnote of some kind, because I would agree if that's all you looked at.
Great. Do we have a policy to stop the transfer to the open space fund if the new tax goes through, or is that perpetual regardless of the tax going through? I don't know if there's a trigger.
The current financial policies around the transfers will need to be amended, because we will have 2 different funds. Short term at least, open space looks like it'll be at a pretty good location. The Parks Fund is going to need some help from the general fund short term. So we haven't rolled our sleeves all the way up on that just yet, but that's something we've got a lot of work to do on.
Okay. Is any of this still kind of, we figured this out a couple weeks ago, but like in the trends here, are we still sort of ignoring potential grant funding for some of these bigger ticket items, or are they kind of in there to mitigate some of the costs? Because like, oh, a $600,000 thing, but we're gonna get $600,000. But the revenue's not in there because it's a grant that we've applied for. We're assuming expense without assuming revenue. Are there examples maybe of revenue we're not assuming?
No.
No? Dang it. Okay, that's too bad. And then last one is turn back. You know, we have a lot right now, and so just, is this assuming sort of that we're going to be able to spend, like, I know we have a lot of turn back money available to spend this year, and so this assumes that we will spend every penny so turn back is actually supposed to come to us, right? But the money that's been allocated for projects that has not been completed yet is inflating our general fund today, but we're gonna spend it all when we complete those projects. And that has no bearing on any of this, or
Operational turnback is factored into these models. So when we look at our green charts, we look at the expenditure column, it is lower than your adopted budget. So it does assume some funding being turned back to that fund.
Okay.
Operationally. Capital projects are a little bit different. Those are carried forward to subsequent years where the work is being done. But for operational turnback, that is shown, that is ran through the model. So your stacks would look even further apart if we.
If we didn't, it would be worse if you didn't have that in there.
Correct.
Okay, great. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, everybody's spoken except for me. Did you have more, Councilor Lay? Let me say a few things.
How about after you?
If there's anything left.
He's going to say it all.
All right.
I doubt that. You know, I think that we have a lot of work to do. And, you know, every one of these funds just about shows a deficit. And you know what? I know some of you are alarmed, but for me, it's like, oh, okay, now we'll get the energy to figure this out. Because we actually do this every single year. We start off with projecting to spend more than we're going to take in. And so we have to work on both the expenditure and the revenue sides. We have to make some decisions. Should the out years for sales tax be higher? You know, it's a philosophical discussion. At what point do we level that off? That's my question. Should it be more than 3.5? Probably. 7? I don't think so. But, you know, we're just making up numbers now. You know, we're coming up with some level of comfort. But with regard to the Open Space Parks Task Force, the assumption was made that the transfers would be maintained. And so and then with the additional 1/8 of 1% going to open space, there are also commitments made in the ballot issue and in the ordinance that it would fund newer programs in some areas, for example, that haven't been addressed. For example, in open space, we currently have $150,000 for maintenance of all of open space. $150,000. That's, you know, we spend $250,000 on outreach and education programs. I don't think that's the right balance for what the community is looking for. So I don't think there's a source there, is what I'm saying. I think that commitment is made, and the way the ordinance was written is that those funds we currently are supporting will go to those programs. So anyway, I don't want to go any deeper because I think that, I think splitting the mill levy charts would be really good. You know, there's always the philosophy on, do you lower the mill levy to just meet the bond payment, or do you pay off the bond early? You know, so I think that's one of those policy discussions we can make. We've been working under the assumption up until this year that we would, you know, it would go up by whatever the 5 to 7% is, and then we would just pay off the bond earlier. So that's another way of looking at that. But as far as the property taxes, I think that I personally, in meetings and from the dais and during budget discussions, is that those would be maintained based upon the budget that we set forth for those. So thinking that we're going to raise property taxes by 40% is a complete non-starter for me, and I think it would be for the citizens. But anyway, next week we roll up our sleeves and get deeper. We probably will have another one of those sessions in September or October. So Councilor Lay and then Councilor Most.
2 points. One is I had a visual on the fire chief during the question of whether mill levy was going to be changed or not. It might be by the fire, so that the chart on page 11 of your presentation, it would just be good to know what the impact, if any, is going to be on the fire department. And that would suggest it would be great to have the fire chief at that meeting if we could, or at least get his input beforehand. And that may be already something you're doing.
Yeah, the mayor and I are working on that as we speak with the other entities.
Excellent. The second thing is just if we could go back to the sales tax revenue. It's 12. I want to focus just for a second on that dip during COVID, because right in there this is just after the Wayfair decision that the Supreme Court made. One thing that would help me is it possible to do a chart like this and find some way to exclude outside sales tax, just for comparisons purposes? And frankly, if others are not interested in that, just to send me an email about that. But I'm interested in the volatility of it and to what extent we are relying on that, because I think it's a question of how long that tail is gonna last, whether it's gonna be stable over time. Thanks.
Councilor Most?
I really appreciate your comments, Mayor. And I just want to say that no one likes to raise taxes, right? And I think we're all, as homeowners in this community, as renters, whatever, we're all being impacted. I just want us to, again, to be thinking about the fact that folks in our community that are on the lower and moderate income side are getting hit, not just by this, but as I mentioned earlier, by increased homeowners insurance, which translates into increased rent, by increased auto insurance, by all these other expenses going up, even food expenses. So I think it's so important for us when we're thinking about our community. You know, I know some of these tax amounts seem like small amounts of money, but there are people in our community for whom $100 here, $100 there, that's a lot of money. That makes a difference. And I really want to make sure we're keeping that in mind as we're going through this process and thinking about ways that we can, make sure that we're meeting the needs of everybody in our community. So just wanted to make that comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Hefner?
Yeah, thanks. Maybe this is just a semantic point, but I want to be clear that we're talking about cutting taxes versus not cutting taxes. And in fact, we are asking for a tax increase this year in the form of a sales tax, which to Councilman Lay's point is a regressive form of tax. And so we're asking to maybe cut a progressive form of tax, while at the same time we're asking for permission to increase a regressive tax. And I just think we should all be careful about how we talk about it. Nobody is talking about a property tax increase, we're talking about a property tax cut.
I don't think I agree with that perspective. We actually are talking about increasing the property tax, but by a lower amount than we'd be using if we use just the assessed values. So we would be discounting the mills on a calculation that's using increased values. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about a 7.5% increase in property taxes. So we're
in the assessed values.
No, the assessed values are roughly 30 to 40%, somewhere in the neighborhood. But we're looking at the actual property tax revenue or going up by 7.5%.
It will be a revenue increase, but a decrease in the applicable ultimate assessed rate.
No, what we're decreasing is the amount, the calculation of mills.
Which is, I mean, it's like saying we're doing a sales tax at 7.5%, let's just imagine, right? If you buy $100 worth of stuff, you pay $7.50. If you buy $200 worth of stuff, you pay twice that. That doesn't mean the rate has changed, right? The rate has remained the same.
But property tax is based upon assessed values.
And the assessed values have gone up, so the amount we're gonna collect if we do nothing will also go up.
Let's make an assumption, assessed values go up by 30%. If we do nothing based upon our mills, the property tax will go up by 30%.
Yeah,
So what we're talking about doing is having a credit mill so that the property tax only goes up by 7.5%, not 30%.
yeah, that's a tax, well, you know, maybe we should have a private conversation, but to me, that's a tax cut. And I think to most people, right, if you make more, say you have a flat income tax, right? If you make more money in a given year, you pay more in income tax, but it doesn't necessarily mean your rate has changed.
So we're in this conundrum of arguing progressive and regressive analysis here, so.
We can talk privately.
But we are talking about an increasing property taxes by 7.5%. That's the net. All right, Chief, do you want to say something?
Yeah, just real quick.
Can you come up to the podium?
There's a John Wilson Louisville Fire District. There's one thing that everyone's missing, and that is the rate is going down. The assessment rate for your house has gone up, but the rate that they calculate is going down on commercial spaces and on residentials. So you have to consider that too. And I don't think anyone's considered that quite yet. That's what we're considering. And that's why I'm shaking my head that at this point, I've been told that I have to cut 10% of my budget. But that 10% was from a state level. And so of course, Boulder County's rates are a lot higher than a lot of the rest of the state, but the commercial rate and the residential rate are going down, depending on proposition HH and some other stuff. So that's, yeah, so those are things that you have to consider too.
Right,
So,
right. That's part of the problem with the timing, all of this too. All right, we need to take public comment. So Sherry Summer.
Sherry Summer, Louisville. I just wanted to make a statement. I don't think the property tax is purely progressive, because if people own a home and they rent it, they'll pass the tax on to their renters. I wanted to ask Director Bailey, will homes be saving on average $150 a year or $150 a month? Okay, so that's about $12.
You can make comments.
Oh, but I can't ask questions. I'm
Right,
sorry, it
so
just wasn't
it's-
clear to me. I'm
All
sorry,
right.
because that makes a big difference. That's about $12.50 a month per household per month that people will be saving if we do the mill levy reduction and the rec center bond reevaluation. And to me, I kind of wonder, I understand like no one wants to raise taxes, and percentage-wise, it looks very terrible to say 40% is a huge increase, but I really wonder the real value that people will get from a $12.50 reduction on their property, on their taxes per month. And the cost to the city is quite real, because that's $1.2 million for the mill levy reduction and $800,000 from the rec center bond reevaluation, and that's pretty serious money, especially if we're thinking that the open space tax could possibly not pass. So I just like to think about that with the timing and just the amount. I'd also like to ask about the amount set aside for decarbonization. I believe that was $1.5 million. During the discussions we have, I believe that we will need about $51 million to have enough to make the program go forward. The end savings will be $4 to $14 million, but we'll need quite a lot of money. So I'm just wondering how the $1.5 million is planned to move the decarbonization plan forward and what the timing will be on the passage of that. Also I wanted to mention, if the rec center bond is at a really low interest rate because it was taken out some time ago, it doesn't make sense to me to pay that off quickly. I also wonder how the rec center reserve fund will affect the decarbonization plan, if there's any overlap, and if any of that reserve will go toward decarbonization. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, so we need to take a voice vote on this to set a public hearing for October 17th. So I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for the budget on October 17th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much. All right, the next are all first readings, so I'm going to be doing a lot of reading up here. First is ordinance number 1857, series 2023, an ordinance amending Title III of the Louisville Municipal Code concerning the city's tax and business assistance program set forth in Chapter 3.24, and to add a new Chapter 3.25 regarding enhanced assistance for aerospace businesses. First reading, set the public hearing for September 19th, 2023. So I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next is ordinance number 1858, series 2023, an ordinance amending Title 17 of the Louisville Municipal Code by the addition of Chapter 17.26 titled Outdoor Lighting. This is the first reading, set the public hearing for October 2nd, 2023. So I'll make a motion to pass this ordinance. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is ordinance number 1859, series 2023, an ordinance amending Title 17 of the Louisville Municipal Code by creating a new section 17.16.350, establishing procedures and criteria for concept plan review. This is the first reading. Set the public hearing for October 2nd, 2023. I make a motion to pass this ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is ordinance number 1860, series 2023, an ordinance repealing the prohibition on pit bulls contained in section 6.12.160 of the Louisville Municipal Code. This is the first reading, setting the public hearing for October 2nd, 2023. I make a motion to approve this.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This is fun. Ordinance number 1861, 2023, an ordinance amending section 2.67.020 of the Louisville Municipal Code, reducing membership of the Recreation Advisory Board. This is the first reading, set the public hearing for October 2nd, 2023. I'll make a motion to, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance number 1862, series 2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 2.20 of the Louisville Municipal Code concerning the Art and Culture Advisory Board. This is the first reading, set the public hearing for October 2nd, 2023. Make a motion to pass this ordinance.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance number 1863, 2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 2.20 of the Louisville Municipal Code concerning the Historical and Museum Advisory Board. This is the first reading, setting a public hearing for October 2nd, 2023. I make a motion to pass this ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, I feel like I'm boring. City Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for your support on the things that we had to deal with tonight and getting it done in a quick manner. Next is council comments, committee reports, and identification of future agenda items. Mayor Pro Tem Fahey.
I just wanted to make note that I've gotten several comments from the public in thanks of the new no right turn on red light at Via Appia and South Boulder Road. So thank you very much for installing that.
Councilor Most?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, make a comment about, or perhaps this is a future agenda item specifically to, because we have talked about this before, about addressing use tax waivers for fire victims who did not, whose homes were not destroyed. I know we've kind of talked about this, it's bounced around, but there are people in our community, I'm hearing from them, that are really concerned about whether or not we're going to take action on this for those who are dealing with mitigation. And I just wanted to raise that issue and make sure that we are addressing it, because people are feeling really stressed about that. The other thing that I have a comment about, I'm assuming this isn't a future agenda item, is a concern, I should say, that there is ballot language being developed for the, or language for the Blue Book in support of the, at least for the pro side of the use tax, open space use tax, that is being developed. Is that something the city does? Is that something an outside organization does?
That is not something the city does.
Okay.
That will come to us by anyone in the
Okay, so anyone
community who wants to put
Okay.
forward pro or con statements.
So, okay, and do we have any mechanism for communicating that?
I do know some residents I know are aware of the
Okay.
deadline and what is required, but
Okay,
the deadline to submit those to me is the 22nd of September.
Of September, okay, so there's time. Okay, thank you, that's all.
Councilor Hamilton?
Thank you. I was hoping the directors would still be in the room, but maybe they'll watch afterwards, some of them. But I wanted to make note of how much I enjoy the upgrades to the exterior of the library, the new art. Oh, yeah. The seating that's out there. I know, she's gone. And it makes my heart so happy to see kids walk up to that art, engage in it, to see families sitting outside with their books, sitting there during the farmer's market, enjoying the shade. So I think that was a fantastic project. And the library, to me, it's the heart and soul of the community. You engage with your library from birth through adulthood. And I hear from so many members outside of the Louisville community that our library is excellent. And so I wanted to acknowledge that beautiful work tonight. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but take this opportunity to say thank you, and it is much appreciated.
I will pass that along with a note that if you had been here still, you would have heard it yourself.
You could give them the time of the recording, too. Thank you for that comment. Any other comments? We're adjourned.
It's not the only way that we would need education. So we would do potentially things like mailers to properties, letting them know, hey, if you replace your lighting, maybe that would be an annual mailing. We've done things like that before. Certainly store partnerships are something we could pursue. Not so hopeful about that piece, just because having done a community survey with that question, a lot of people buy their lighting online. So we don't really have as much control as we might imagine that we do over that. But certainly, again, the education piece could be helpful there. There are current programs on Dark Sky that, planning, we're starting to partner with other departments across the city. And so those are already happening, and we're working on, making those more robust were this to be adopted. We've had a web page up for many years, and we also, would have potentially a verification system for lighting for all permits. If you're coming in for a type of lighting, please verify that you are not adding any other lighting or that it's compliant, right? Little ways like that to capture more than just the are you doing an addition or not, right? And then the final thing is just a compliance